Okay, right off the bat, starting off what should be part 2 of this video. If I decide to make a part 2, this is, well, I thought it was first Grevillea robusta, but it's actually, but I've looked at it closer, definitely not a Grevillea, and it's probably an Acacia mearnsii, commonly known as black wattle, another Australian species. What's interesting about it, as compared to other wattles, is that it doesn't seem to have phyllodes. It has typical compound leaves of the family Fabaceae, and other plants that are formerly placed in the genus Acacia but are now placed in like Vikellia or Senegalia. Very interesting, and it seems to have what look like seed pods there, but also are actually seed pods there. So I don't know, very strange plant, and it definitely looks like the Grevillea robusta. So just so clearly like an Australian plant. I've also seen this now, which I couldn't tell what it was at first, but I think is actually Santalum, ellipticum, or most likely at least a native species of Santalum or Sandalwood. Hawaii's got quite a few species of native Sandalwood, and well, not quite, but I think about 4 that are endemic. And they're really interesting. They were actually one of the first big industries in Hawaii was exporting sandalwood for its fragrant qualities. Now, sandalwood is formerly placed in the family Santalaceae, is now in the family Psidium, which is also parasitic and comprises mostly mistletoes, which it kind of makes sense. It turns out a lot of plants that are parasitic tend to be related to other parasitic plants. So, yeah, speaking of which, this plant is definitely parasitic. It may not be parasitizing anything here, but it likely is. Quite possibly the black wattle behind it. So, yeah, let's carry on. Now, if you thought this forest didn't have enough Australian species in it, you're in luck because you have yet another one here. This is Melaleuca quinquenervia, commonly known as Paperbark, so named for its frequently hanging, thin, papery bark. Either way, member of the family Myrtaceae, so it's related to eucalyptus. I think fairly closely related actually. It looks quite a lot like it for sure. Typically Melaleucas grow in wetland areas, I believe, though there's over 100 species that grow throughout the Australian continent, so there's a few areas it can definitely adapt to different habitats there. Now, unfortunately, we have yet another worst species here, perhaps one of the worst species in the Hawaiian Islands again. I think you can see growing around here is Psidium, cattelyanum, commonly known as strawberry guava. It's another member of Myrtaceae, but part of a different section. It's known for having fleshy fruits. It is just a really bad species that grows very aggressively, and although they thankfully developed some biocontrol for it using a scale insect to its native range, it won't affect any of the native species here, but it won't kill the plant either, but it definitely knocks it back a bit. I'm not actually sure this is what it is, but it looks quite a lot like it, so yeah, I think it normally goes in more rainforesty areas than where we are right now, but this is quite a lot what it looks like, though that might be a little bit large lease for it. I'm not sure I'm going to go much further, really, because there's not a whole lot else to see at the moment. I was hoping for some more native species, but it seems like we're getting less of them as the further hike. Oh, looks like we're getting some actual eucalyptus species up ahead. Couldn't tell you what they are, but that's of course a famously Australian genus. I feel like they imported the entire continent over to this little forest here. It's like, I don't know, I guess the native species weren't good enough. It's been pretty recent, like at least as recent, I think the year 2000, foresters in Hawaii have been planting non-native species in forest reserves here to try and see what grows and what can be economically viable. So it's a bit disappointing to know, because there really are quite a lot of nice species we should be trying to conserve and planting in the forests here. Have a really rough go of it, and with every new species introduced, there's a higher probability of there being a really bad invasive, like the next big one. That practice may have ceased by now, but I think they really have no plans to undo the damage that's been done. Okay, look at that eucalyptus bark. Not a clue what it is, but it looks really nice at least. I really do love the way Australian plants look, but unfortunately they just do not belong here at all. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick right now. I'm trying not to clear my throat too much on camera, but it's really a little obnoxious to trying to hike and get my throat congested, nose congested, and just not do anything about it. Yeah. Oh, here's a real punisher. This is Clidema hirta. So I think some people now call it Miconia hirta. Also known as Koster's curse. It's just a bad invasive plant. It's a member of the family Melaleuca. And again, definitely one of the worst invasives you can find in Hawaii. The family Melaleuca is not native to the islands at all. So there's absolutely nothing in the islands that'll really eat or consume this plant. So it just goes out of control, along with its unholy partner in crime, Miconia calvescens, also native to South America, though there's thankfully a biocontrol that they're looking to release quite soon that can definitely deal with the Miconia. I think there's another one to deal with this that we're working on. So hopefully I can really knock them back and give native plants a chance of competing, because they're, again, really, really bad, especially the Miconia calvescens. One really common feature of the family, as you can see, it's got these leaves which are really, it's like 5 ridges on them, or 5 leaf veins, I should say. And I think this is definitely strawberry guava now. So if what I was talking about earlier wasn't strawberry guava, this definitely is, just because that fruit you can see there. Yeah, this one's clearly worm infested and fly infested, so I'm not going to eat it, but it's apparently not a bad tasting thing. It's like a less good guava, but guava is pretty great as it is, so you can always be choosers. But the fact that it's edible really is kind of a problem almost, because it leads to a lot of people not wanting to eradicate strawberry guava. Thankfully, the scale insect already has been introduced. Here we go. So Renevy's good. Man, those are really hard seeds. I just don't feel hungry right now, so I spit it out, but it's not so bad tasting, honestly. Ugh. Oh, is this a Rigeron canadensis? No way. I gotta see if that plant actually grows in Hawaii. I mean, of course, it's a non-native if it does, but that's really interesting. No doubt it'd be invasive here, but that's a real shock. It is native in Utah, though, so I can forgive it a little bit. Just kidding, I can only really forgive it if it's in habitat in Utah, but in which case it doesn't even need forgiveness because it's not invasive there. I really don't have any hope of finding any other cool species out here, but let's just keep trying. You know, just moments after I said that, I find this plant right here on the other side of the trail. This is, I think, Styphelia tameiameiae, and it's a almost completely endemic plant to the Hawaiian Islands, though they can also be found in the Marquesas. It's normally characteristic of rainier rainforests, like at Mount Koala, which I'll hopefully visit later on this trip. But it looks quite a lot like it, so I'm going to presume that's what it is. It's a member of the family Acacia, the, of course, blueberry family. And there's a few other endemics in Hawaii from this family, or at least native species. Definitely some, well, there are definitely some endemics, but that all aside, it's a kind of a cool shrubby plant. Almost imbricate looking leaves. I really like it, and I hope that's what it is, because there's really a lot of invasives here, as I said before. It's not looking any better as I go on. Another plant up here that's definitely worth mentioning, and most likely invasive. This is Passiflora edulis. I'm not sure if it's the notorious banana polka, but it is a species of passion fruit regardless, or passion flower, and you can see, I should be pretty clear if you're familiar at all with what these flowers look like. They have such a cool, unique look to them, like this, with all these weird little tentacle-like things. I don't actually know what they are, because I believe those pink, purple things that have petals, while the sepals are just behind them. Anyway, such a beautiful, cool-looking flower, and I just wish it could have been native, but it's not, so it has to go at some point. Now some good news on this strawberry guava plant. You can see the scale insect I was talking about causing some nasty galls just over here on the leaves. That's what uninfected leaves look like. Well, this is what the infected ones look like. And what this forces the plant to do is, for one, it damages the plant, but it forces it to spend tissue it could be using to produce flowers and fruit, to produce these galls that the insect then feeds upon. So it really can sap quite a lot of energy from the plant, and although it won't actually kill it, it does really knock it back a bit, and can actually cause some serious defoliation on it. And eventually, over time, other plants can start competing with it again, because where it normally grows, it can absolutely dominate everything else around it. California grass is growing pretty tall here. I don't know what these ferns are. I think they're native. I'll look it up. I think there might be a Nephrolepis. I think maybe some like a sword fern. So I think that group is, but I don't know my ferns very well, unfortunately. I don't know a lot of my plants very well, but I still try to make them anyways, and I think I'm learning and getting better at this as I go along. Maybe one day I'll make truly impressive videos, but for now, I'm just happy to be making better ones every day. They're about 1,800 feet up right now, so clouds are really low in the sky up here, especially it's a very windy day, I should mention, because there's a hurricane to the southeast of the islands and far arms of it are driving a lot of wind, which is eerily the same conditions that led to the terrible wildfire that destroyed Lahaina last year. So hopefully nothing happens. I don't think it will because it's been a bit rainier than that lately, so probably not as much dry brush, but you never know. Alright, now what I believe we have here is a classic Hawaiian pig exclusion fence, because pigs are definitely a worse invasive animal here, or at least worse invasive vertebrate animal. They cause a ton of damage to plants, and their walls create breeding habitat for mosquitoes. They put these fences up in different parts around the island where they want to exclude pigs and let the vegetation recover and be natural. Now of course the vegetation on this side isn't any more or less invasive than that on the other side. Not to say it's very much dominated by invasives, but there's probably a couple of cool species out here. Or maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just a fence for some other purpose. I was kind of hoping for some more ridgeline plants up here, but we can hopefully get a good view of the west side of Oahu in just a second. If I can position myself correctly. There we go. That's fantastic. I love the state, it's so beautiful. And somewhere out that way, behind the trees, is Mount Kealia, which gets a little over 4,000 feet up to the highest point on the island. And where I hope to visit later, chase some more of the native plants you can find. Fortunately, though, I think this forest is just a bunch of invasives now. But maybe one day we'll get a few more natives in it through careful restoration efforts. Maybe one day I won't speak with a speech impediment, but until that happens, I can just appreciate the forest and the few natives here for what they are. So thanks for watching and see you next time. Of course, if I had hiked about an extra 10 feet before I made that last clip, you could have seen how much better this view is. Now that's Mount Kealia. That's the rest of the Waianaes in front of us. That huge ridge sort of blocks just how far south they extend. And now for real, thanks for watching and see ya. Couldn't think of it, I've never really seen this view of the North Shore either. Which I only have to notice when going down. It's also kind of cool. You got a good eye, you just might be able to see the tower near Waimea Bay. I can see it. See you next time, guys. For real this time.